Appreciate the quiet down here.
Deep in the Pacific Ocean, before the sun even thinks about rising, a team of 114 culinary specialists is already sweating in kitchens hotter than most commercial restaurant lines. Their mission? Feed 5,500 sailors 3 full meals plus midnight rations. That's over 17,000 plates of food every single day. While fighter jets roar overhead and combat operations never stop, these cooks work in spaces so tight you can barely turn around, using equipment that could feed an entire town. One mistake, one bout of food poisoning, one delayed meal, and the entire ship's readiness falls apart. This is the most intense kitchen job in America, and you're about to see exactly what it takes. Introduction. When we think about aircraft carriers, we picture the jets, the weapons, the power. But there's an entire operation happening below deck that most people never consider. The USS Harry S. Truman, one of America's Nimitz-class nuclear carriers, is essentially a floating city. It's home to over 5,500 dedicated servicemen and women working around the clock to project American power across the globe. And just like any city, these people need to eat. But feeding this many people isn't like running a restaurant or even a large cafeteria. This is feeding an entire town's worth of people, 3 times a day, every single day, while operating in some of the most challenging conditions imaginable. The men and women who make this happen are Navy culinary specialists, and their job is far more critical than most realize. Food isn't just fuel on a carrier, it's morale. It's a reminder of home. It's what keeps these sailors going during 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, for months at a time. If you've got respect for the hard work our military does, type "proud" in the comments below. The scope of the operation. Let's start with the numbers because they're staggering. On a typical day, the culinary team aboard a carrier like the Truman prepares 17,300 meals. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and something called mid-rats, midnight rations for the sailors working the night shift. To put that in perspective, the busiest McDonald's in America serves about 4,000 customers per day. These Navy cooks are doing more than 4 times that volume, and they're doing it with fresh-cooked meals, not fast food. The daily shopping list reads like something from a wholesale warehouse. Every single day, the galley goes through 1,600 pounds of meat. That's nearly a ton of beef, chicken, pork, and fish. They use 350 pounds of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, 30 cases of cereal, and brew 20,000 cups of coffee. The coffee alone could fill a small swimming pool by the end of the week. But here's what makes it even more complicated. This food has to meet strict nutritional standards. The Navy mandates that male sailors receive 2,850 calories per day, while female sailors get 2,100. Every meal has to be calculated for nutrients, calories, fat, and sodium. The cooks have to account for food allergies, religious dietary restrictions, and personal preferences. This isn't just slopping food onto plates. This is precision nutrition at scale. And the cost. On the newest carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the daily grocery bill runs between $45,000 and $65,000. That's over $1 million per month just in food costs. But when you're keeping America's finest fed and ready for action, it's worth every penny. The kitchens themselves. Now let's talk about where this magic happens. The Nimitz-class carriers have 5 galleys spread throughout the ship. The newer Ford-class carriers have 2, one forward for the flight crew and one aft for everyone else. These aren't your typical restaurant kitchens. Space is at an absolute premium on a carrier. Every square inch is accounted for, which means these galleys have to be incredibly efficient. Walk into one of these kitchens and you'll see equipment that looks like it belongs in a factory, not a restaurant. There are industrial ovens that can cook hundreds of pounds of meat at once, kettles that hold 80 gallons of soup or stew, that's enough to fill a standard bathtub, dough mixers that can handle 60 pounds at a time, churning out fresh bread every single day. The fryers are massive, capable of cooking hundreds of pieces of chicken simultaneously. The bakery is a special highlight. Fresh cookies come out of the ovens throughout the day, and that smell, fresh-baked cookies in the middle of the ocean, it's a small piece of home that means the world to these sailors. But working in that bakery comes at a cost. The temperature in there regularly hits 110 degrees or higher. It's an oven inside an oven, and the bakers work those shifts without complaint because they know what those cookies mean to the crew, but having the equipment is only half the battle. The real challenge is the people running it. And that's where things get really interesting, because most of these cooks had never worked in a professional kitchen before joining the Navy. The culinary specialists. Navy culinary specialists come from all walks of life. Some were professional chefs before enlisting. Others had never boiled water. That's a direct quote from a senior culinary specialist aboard the Truman. The skill range is enormous, and somehow they all have to work together seamlessly. Training starts at the Navy's Culinary Specialist A School at Fort Lee, Virginia. It's an intense program that covers everything from basic knife skills to advanced cooking techniques. But more importantly, it teaches them how to work at scale. Cooking for 5 people is one thing. Cooking for 5,500 is something else entirely. They learn to think in bulk. They learn to prep ingredients for hours before service even starts. They learn to work in extreme heat while maintaining food safety standards that would make a health inspector proud. When these specialists arrive on their first carrier, reality hits hard. The first few weeks are described by many as a shock. The pace is relentless. The heat is unbearable. The expectations are sky high. Equipment breaks down. Entire batches of food sometimes have to be thrown out and remade. There's no calling in sick. There's no slow Tuesday afternoon. The carrier operates 24/7 and so does the galley. A typical day for a breakfast shift cook starts at 3:30 in the morning. That's right, 0330 in military time. They're preparing food while most of the ship is still asleep. These sailors work 12 to 16-hour shifts, and there's never a down moment. They're on their feet the entire time, moving from station to station, prepping, cooking, serving, and cleaning. Then they do it all over again the next day. The menu and variety. One of the most impressive aspects of carrier food service is the variety. The Navy uses a rotating menu system that cycles every 14 to 21 days. That means sailors aren't eating the same meal twice in a 3-week period. The menu includes everything from comfort food to international cuisine. There's Taco Tuesday, which is exactly what it sounds like and is wildly popular. Mongolian Grill, where sailors can customize their stir-fry. There are themed meals for holidays. Turkey and all the fixings for Thanksgiving, prime rib for special occasions, even lobster for birthdays. These aren't cheap frozen dinners. These are restaurant-quality meals prepared from scratch. When the carrier is operating near foreign ports, regional ingredients sometimes make their way into the menu. Feta cheese from Greece, fresh pasta from Italy, spices from the Middle East. It adds variety and gives sailors a taste of the places they're operating near, even if they never get to step foot on land. Before we continue, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but helps us bring you more content like this. Let's support the stories of our military heroes together. The serving style is cafeteria-based, similar to a school lunch line, but on a much larger scale. Sailors grab a tray and move through the line, choosing from multiple options at each station. The lines can stretch throughout the ship, snaking through narrow passageways and up steep ladders, what landlubbers call stairs. During peak meal times, sailors might wait 20 to 30 minutes just to get their food, but it's worth it because the quality has improved dramatically over the years. Logistics and resupply. Now here's where it gets even more complicated. An aircraft carrier can't just run to the grocery store when it runs out of milk. These ships operate for months at a time without touching land. So how do they keep the galleys stocked? The answer is resupply ships. Every 7 to 10 days, a supply vessel pulls alongside the carrier while both ships are moving at speed. Using a system of cables and pulleys, they transfer between 400,000 and 1 million pounds of food. That's not a typo. Up to 500,000 pounds of groceries every week and a half. Fresh fruits, vegetables, frozen meats, dry goods, canned items, everything the galley needs arrives in these massive deliveries. The carrier has dedicated storage areas on the lower decks. Walk into the refrigerated sections, and it looks like a commercial warehouse. Pallets of food stacked floor to ceiling. Everything is organized, inventoried, and rotated to prevent waste. The supply officers track expiration dates down to the day. In an environment where space is precious and resupply is infrequent, nothing can be wasted. But storage brings its own challenges. Fresh produce doesn't last forever, even when refrigerated. So the menu naturally shifts as time passes between resupply runs. Early in the cycle, there are fresh salads and crisp vegetables. Later on, canned and frozen alternatives take their place. The culinary specialists have to be creative, making meals that taste fresh even when they're working with preserved ingredients. The 24/7 operation. Remember, an aircraft carrier never sleeps. Flight operations continue around the clock. Maintenance crews work in shifts. The bridge is always manned. The engine room never stops. And that means the galley never stops either. Meal service runs 22 hours per day. That's right, 22 hours. There's a 2-hour window for deep cleaning, but even then, there are other food options available. The ship's store stays open, offering snacks and quick bites for sailors who miss regular meal times or just want something extra. This continuous operation requires multiple shifts of culinary specialists working in rotation. The breakfast crew starts at 0330. The lunch crew overlaps and begins prep around 0900. The dinner team starts mid-afternoon, and the mid-rats crew works through the night, serving sailors who are on watch or coming off late shifts. It's a carefully choreographed dance, with each shift handing off to the next seamlessly. And here's something most people don't think about. These cooks are also sailors. They have their own battle stations. When the carrier goes to general quarters, everyone has a job. The culinary specialists drop what they're doing and report to their assigned stations. They're trained in damage control, firefighting, and emergency procedures just like everyone else on board. Then, when the drill or crisis ends, they go right back to the galley and continue serving meals. The mission doesn't stop for anything. Morale and the human element. Let's talk about why this job matters so much beyond just filling stomachs. Life on an aircraft carrier is tough. Sailors work long hours in cramped spaces, often going weeks without seeing sunlight. They're away from their families for 6 to 9 months at a time. The stress is constant, the danger is real, and the homesickness is overwhelming at times. Food becomes more than just nutrition in this environment. It's comfort. It's a connection to home. It's one of the few pleasures available in an otherwise demanding existence. A good meal can lift spirits and boost morale in ways that nothing else can. That's why the Navy has invested so heavily in improving culinary programs over the years. They recognize that a well-fed crew is a more effective crew. The culinary specialists understand this responsibility deeply. They take pride in their work because they see the direct impact it has on their fellow sailors. When a pilot comes back from a dangerous mission and sits down to a hot meal, that matters. When a young sailor far from home gets a birthday cake made special by the galley, that matters. When the crew wakes up to the smell of fresh coffee and bacon after a long night of operations, that matters. Senior culinary. Specialists often talk about the letters and thanks they receive from crew members. Sailors who took the time to write a note saying how much a particular meal meant to them. Officers who commend the galley for keeping morale high during difficult deployments. These aren't just cooks. They're an essential part of the ship's combat readiness. Challenges and problem solving. Working in a carrier galley isn't without its challenges. Equipment breaks down regularly. When you're running industrial machinery 20+ hours a day, things wear out. A broken oven or a failed refrigeration unit can throw the entire operation into chaos. The culinary specialists have to be resourceful, finding ways to work around problems while still getting meals out on time. Space constraints create constant difficulties. These galleys are cramped by design. Cooks work shoulder to shoulder, constantly stepping around each other. Storage is limited, so ingredients have to be carefully managed. There's no room for error. No extra space to spread out during busy times. The heat is another major issue. These kitchens can reach 120 degrees or higher, especially in areas like the bakery or near the grills. Add in the humidity from cooking, and it becomes almost unbearable. Sailors drink enormous amounts of water just to stay hydrated during their shifts. Heat exhaustion is a real concern, and the medical staff keeps a close watch on the galley crew. Then there's the motion of the ship. When the seas get rough, everything becomes 10 times harder. Pots slide off burners, food spills. Walking becomes a challenge. Imagine trying to pour 80 gallons of boiling soup while the floor is tilting beneath you. These specialists learn to work in conditions that would shut down any civilian kitchen. But they adapt. They innovate. They find solutions, because the alternative, not feeding the crew, simply isn't an option. Our military trains for every contingency, and these culinary specialists are no exception. They're problem solvers who happen to work with food instead of weapon systems. The bigger picture. It's easy to focus on the jets and the missiles when we think about aircraft carriers. Those are the obvious symbols of American military might. But the real power of these ships comes from the thousands of sailors who keep them running. Every single person on board plays a critical role, and the culinary specialists are no exception. Without them, there is no mission. A hungry crew is an ineffective crew. Food poisoning could sideline dozens or even hundreds of sailors. Poor nutrition affects physical and mental performance. Low morale spreads like wildfire in close quarters. The culinary specialists prevent all of that. They're force multipliers in their own right, enabling every other operation on the ship. These men and women work in obscurity. They don't get the glory of a fighter pilot or the recognition of a commanding officer, but they are absolutely essential to everything the carrier accomplishes. When an FA-18 launches to defend American interests, the pilot flying it was fed by a culinary specialist. When the ship's crew wins awards for readiness and performance, the galley played a role in that success. That's the reality of military service that civilians often miss. It's not just about the warriors on the front lines, it's about the entire support structure that makes those warriors effective. And on an aircraft carrier, that support structure includes 114 dedicated culinary specialists who start work before dawn and don't stop until every sailor has been fed. Conclusion. The next time you think about American aircraft carriers projecting power around the world, remember the kitchen crews working below deck. Remember the 17,000 meals being prepared every single day. Remember the culinary specialists standing in 120-degree heat, working 16-hour shifts, ensuring that our sailors are fed and ready for whatever comes next. They are unsung heroes serving heroes, and their contribution to our national defense cannot be overstated. If this opened your eyes to an aspect of military life you hadn't considered before, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the incredible men and women who serve our country. Their dedication deserves our recognition.